So we're going from possibly the youngest of the Cybertron team to the decrepit oldest, possibly older than time itself, Vector Prime. So Grandpa over here shows basically the limits and the limits of modern repainting and remolding because he's a reworking of G-Axis, which when I first saw him, I couldn't figure out who he was. I couldn't figure when I first saw him, I couldn't figure out who he was a remold of until somebody mentioned the legs. Oh yeah, that is G-Axis. That's that's kind of most of what I see of him, just in kind of duller colors. But this also very much looks like if Vector Prime was much younger, like he had to, like they de-aged him to fit him in the current universe in United. Because size comparison first, here's G-Axis. I still really enjoy this figure. I've been told by specifically Age not to touch the weird off-green plastic and then stick my fingers in my mouth because there's something wrong with the paint, which I was never going to do anyway, but thanks for that nightmare. Anyway, Vector Prime. And another size comparison, the original Vector Prime toy, the Hasbro release. Like the shoulder pads are smaller. He's probably shaved a bit. I do appreciate going with the cartoon accurate maroon over the toy accurate brown. But there is a part of me that would want to see a Gen Selects repaint of this into this color scheme, which fan customizers have already done. He's trimmed down his quite big paunch. He's been working out quite a bit to get back in shape, just like I have. He's had to rework some things to fit in the new vehicle mode, which, given what his vehicle mode is, it's amazing that this toy is as clean as it is. Like, I will give the engineers on this one, they pulled off some magic here, basically. Like, there's almost no discernible vehicle mode parts apart from the wings, which, you know what? Eh, you can just do that if you want. Then you've got these weird things on struts. Actually, he kind of looks worse without him because the blue. I like the blue. I like the maroon, the gray. Given, yeah, given G-Axis, I much prefer a gray to the white. I don't. I'm just saying that, I guess, to try and justify it because it's Vector Prime. I like Vector Prime. Anyone want to ask Vector Prime a question? Oh, that's a deep call. If you're unfamiliar, it was basically an Ask Santa. Or like ask somebody in universe questions on a website. It was Ask Vector Prime. Wayback Machine. Here we go. If the Wayback Machine was a robot, because Vector Prime is old. Let's get a closer shot of his head. Yep, the metallic blue is the same. Okay. His eyes are a bit livelier. He's probably had a nap recently. I like the gold. What I like very much about Vector Prime is he stands out amongst the Autobots just by not his age, but like the mechanisms. He looks like he's made out of gears, and that's very cool. Like you can see on the back of it, but that aesthetic kind of gets lost a little bit when transferring it to this body, because the legs are not remolded to look like his legs. The waist is a little bit, but it doesn't go the full extent of having the cyber key gimmick in the crotch. Cyber crotch power! And the arms, the only thing that's different are the shoulder pads, which makes posing a bit more awkward, because Jhiaxus could pull it off with his square shoulders, but these, unfortunately, yeah, you kind of end up looking like that unless you hinge it down and then make it look smooth. But you're exposing basically the Cybertronian equivalent of veins, I guess, if you want to call them that. Posing is awkward. The head is on a ball joint, which is nice. Up and down, side to side, all the way around. Shoulders, as mentioned, are awkward, but they have full range. It's just the range doesn't really look that good. Bicep swivel. Same deep elbow that Jhiaxus had. The wrist swivel is there. And so is the opening hand. Along with a bit of, you could say, no, that I don't want to count that because that's just transformationally flip his hand in. Waist swivel. Hips are still those hips that look weird when posing because they take the whole skirt chunk with them. Like it looks like he's just cut his leg off, sort of. The thigh does a nice swivel. The outward can go pretty much the full way, only slightly less. Still good enough. The knee, very deep bend. These things are on hinges upon hinges, which Jhiaxus were the same, but they at least curled up and locked into a spot where they're not in the way. I understand the homage of the original wings, but even the original wings could at least fold away and be close and tight on the backpack. And I wish he still had the... That's my favorite gimmick on this toy. Is just... Is that him shouting when he raises his hand? Ah! Cybertron! So, ankles on a pivot. He was posing there and with his ankles in this very awkward pose I have him in. Seems like he's pulling a Duffman and just pelvic thrust. Duffman! Overall, posability is sound. Shoulders are awkward, but you can get around them. I always feel like I put him down and I have to press to get his feet straight, and then his knees just start bowing, and then you're like, I don't like that. It's the same thing with Jhiaxus. Like, I never feel comfortable just putting him down, like just standing, because he's balancing awkward and he's not stood up straight. That's neither here nor there. What is here are his accessories, and they've done some odd things with Vector Prime's gimmicks. Now, if you're familiar with Vector Prime, he comes with a sword, and this sword is on a hinge. I guess if you want to pretend he has a gun. So he can shoot with his sword. I appreciate the translucent plastic is not the one hinging, it's the handle that's solid maroon, so I think there's less of a chance of it breaking. But it is translucent plastic, so I don't have the original Vector Prime sword, but it had much more paint than this. There's some molding on it, along with a Minicon port, because they remolded the Cyber Key and got rid of all the paint on it. You can't tell, but that cartography, it's a map. The original gimmick of Vector Prime, you shove the shield, you shove the Cyber Key in here, and this would basically light up, revealing, I think it was a map, or it was like a, yeah, shield. Like he withstood, I think, blows from Galvatron for at least a short amount of time. You can recreate that gimmick hilariously. Not being beat up by Galvatron, but he's got slots on his chest to plug the key in. That's awesome and hilarious. And if you don't want to store it there, you can take it off and also pull out his chest and plug it on the Minicon port on his sword while knocking off his wing. There we go. So, what would his sword do with this? Would it be able to make his opponent travel back in time? Like that, the finale of Digimon Tamers? At least in the Japanese dub, where they sent the main villain back in time instead of defeating him? Because that's going to end badly. And thankfully they didn't use that in the dub. What about Minicons? Because Vector Prime was, I think, the only one in Cybertron to use a Minicon. Well, I have an original Cybertron Minicon here, and there is not much compatibility. Can you plug him onto the wings? I haven't even tried. No. The depth of it, it just misses. Like yeah. If I transform him, no, because nope. That Minicon port disappears into his guts. You can't plug him onto the wings. There is a port on his back, which this part of the vehicle uses to plug in on his backpack, so you can plug it in there, technically. Although I don't think you want to, because that's where you want the backpack. And then there's the sword with the aforementioned port, which I think works, but you probably, well, if you use it as a gun, hey, backwards compatibility. Great. Now his key will stay on his chest while his sword gun is Minicon powered. There's that. This robot mode is okay. It's not my favorite. I think I might prefer G-Axis more, just because I think G-Axis is a bit cleaner in some of the ways he does things. He's not trying to homage a Cybertron character that I actually care a little bit about. He's homaging a G2 character that I know nothing about besides the toy. In his head, there's things about this toy that I like more. But I still picked up Vector Prime because he's Vector Prime. And now we have to get to the alt mode, We'll be right back after this time-traveling commercial break. So how do we get this from this? Well, let's have a go. Fold up the shoulder pads, pop open the wrist, your forearm, fold the fist in, close it up, and we'll just leave it here. Same thing on the other side. Fold up that articulated hand, close. We're going to swing to the backpack, unpeg that, leave it out of the way, and here's basically all the new magic. Open his chest and his back, fold the head in, fold that up, swivel it around, and close that back up. Fold the arms in. They don't peg together like they do on G-axis, which is unfortunate, but they will tab into the legs, which we will swivel around, fold the inner panel up on both sides to form a tail fin, and then we start by collapsing the legs. No, we've already started. We collapse the legs. So fold it up with the foot close in, so tab into the foot, and it would make sense to have the back panel collapse like that. Make sure it's locked into place like thus. Do the same thing on the other leg. Hinge it up, tab it in, and then make sure it's locked into the panel and the legs are connected. We can now swing the arms down and they will tab in to the thighs. And we shall deal with the wings. Fold them out and they will tab in right in that hook there. Same thing on the other side. And that is Vector Prime's new jet mode. And it's not a half bad job. I respect how much effort went into making the front look like his grandpa over here. Like, that chest panel flip is probably the best thing they could have done on this toy, because who wants that up front, really? Like, that doesn't look right. They went so far to even mold in the notch from the frickin' missile firing on the original. Like, that is quite a lot of attention to detail in the front half. Unfortunately, on the back half, it's still just G-axis. This toy is like 90% G-axis and like maybe 10% Vector Prime. As you can just see how much of it it's unfortunate, but honestly, that's the only way we were going to get a Vector Prime toy these days without having to license the name from Logan Paul and Vector Cereal. That joke was so bad it makes me want to go into a forest. Anyway, what can we do with this jet? You can swivel these. You have a new bridge Yeah, that wasn't on the original. And you have a Minicon peg. So we have one Minicon here. Will he fit? Nope. He can kind of fit sideways, but still no. I have... Where's Jolt? Jolt is sitting on my Armada Prime. Oh, that's not going to work like that. There you are, Jolt. Plugging Jolt in. Huh. Jolt actually fits. There you go. There's a place right there where that peg plugs into the backpack, but trying to use the peg on Jolt's doesn't work. So if you want to plug a Minicon, that's your best option. Or you can plug the sword. The sword can go... Not really. Because that port right there is where the head is. And that little notch is like how the neck plugs into the torso. So that little notch gets in the way of plugging anything in there. It does have Minicon port, as I'm sure I showed off. It's been quite a while since I recorded the first half of this video. Nope, even folded up, you can't plug it in. There's no side storage like the original. You do have under the wing storage. And that's about it. If we take the planet key, I believe you could plug it into the Minicon peg. Sort of. It doesn't actually really fit that well. It fits like that. Or, more importantly, those slots right there are designed just right to fit it like that. That's kind of cool. And that's basically it for this figure. We've done the size comparisons. I want to like it because it's Vector Prime, but like it doesn't have the features I relate to or correlate to with a Vector Prime. Like, remember that Armada Megatron that came out? There was a certain, I'm not gonna name, but like some people, I'm sure, felt like unsatisfied with that Armada Megatron because it doesn't have all the gimmicks and ridiculousness of the original. I am not one of those people because I never had the original Armada Megatron, so I was just happy to have an awesome figure of Armada Megatron. But I kind of feel that way about this Vector Prime. Like, I miss the sword storage, even though I don't have the original sword. I miss the missile launching feature, even though I don't have the missile, and I don't have the original Minicon or his Cyber Key. But I feel like this guy doesn't quite satisfy the way this toy does. Like, I'm happy to have him for an updated Cybertron display, which I will do once I set up my new bookshelf and whatnot, and eventually do a brand new room setup, room tour, probably when I get everything built and set up and ready to be displayed. Like, that's It'll happen eventually. But when I make a Cybertron display, I'm gonna have to decide which version of the character I want on the shelf. Or, more likely, one will go in the Cybertron display, one will go in like a Legacy United display kind of thing. But if all you're after is a Vector Prime toy, he is as good as you're gonna get. Like, I still want to recommend this toy for Vector Prime, just because I love the ratcheting, I love the sound effects, I love this hilarious Star Warsy alt mode. But if you want one bit more current, there you go. You got one. I don't know if this wave is still on shelves or if we've moved past it. I still can't find a bloody sideburn. Comic-Con is coming up in like 2 weeks. No, a week. 1 week from now. And I'm hedging my bets on finding Sideburn there. Because if not, I'm going to have to wait till October to a more, like a smaller convention with somebody who I know age, who knows me enough to sell the stuff that I want, basically. And maybe, just maybe, I'll complete this Vector Prime one day. That would be really cool. There's like a list of things, like complete the Turbo Rescue Megazord. Was it not RV Robo? VRV Robo? Their second robot were the ones where each vehicle could also turn into a robot and then combine, because I had that Megazord as a kid and I have one piece of it now and I really don't want to like buy the full set off eBay because it's expensive as hell. I'd love to find piece by piece and put it together on my own. It was my childhood, but complete a Bruticus, a G1 Bruticus, because I only have Onslaught and like a G2 Swindle. And I have a couple other pieces that I shoved onto him from other teams, like a Wild Rider and Dragstrip. It's a very odd looking Bruticus at the moment. I'd love to complete a G1 Bruticus, but expensive. And there are other things on the list that you don't need to know right now, but I don't know what that has to do with this toy. But I do know this toy is something worthwhile, maybe? I don't know. Maybe newer fans won't know who Vector Prime is, so the name won't have any value, but anyway, get him if you want him. I don't know, really. I'm still indecisive, but keep it weird. May the Force be with you. Wrong universe, but it still feels like. Could we. What figure could we possibly get a Star Wars crossover out of with this guy? Like, what character? And like, would this be like all white or no? Because I'm thinking Y wing, each color for like red team and whatnot. But yeah, what color? What character in Star Wars would you see turning into this vehicle mode? Let me know in the comments. Keep it weird. Bye.